And welcome to the class. The first thing you need to do is you need to go to aplusstudents.com. You need to select math as your subject. This is a grade 8 lesson. Okay. And the topic for today is data and graph. Data and graph. Okay. The chapter number is chapter 24. The chapter number is 24. And the lesson number is lesson number 13. Okay. And the lesson number is 13. And the name of the lesson is Interpret Box and Whiskers, box dash and hyphen whiskers plot. So box and whiskers is basically another representation of data. So we go to grade 8, chapter 24, lesson number 13. Okay. So let's see what a box and whiskers is, and we'll look at the additional given information. So the given question there is they have given us a box and whiskers diagram and they want us to interpret the diagram. Okay. So I'll just enlarge this. Okay, sorry. So the question number 1 says, an auditor at the utility company is going over customer bills from June, ensuring that they were charged the right amount for the gas they use. She is focusing on customers living in two cities, Stafford and Lakeside. So there are two box and whiskers over here. What we can do is we can always draw them together. They can be drawn together or they could be done separately. I'll show you how they're done separately. Okay. Copy and paste. If this was Lake, let's look at the Stafford. What they did was, rather than doing twice, they made it once. Okay. And what they did was, let's just move this over here. It's done something like this. Okay. So either you do them together on the same diagram or you can do them separately on the diagram. I just did this separate just to make you understand that how a box and whiskers is being plotted, right? This same diagram, which is given to us in the question, right? I broke it down into two separate diagrams. Okay. So depending on our understanding, we can either make two. That would be very time consuming, right? So we just simply look at the question given and we look at the values. Okay. So these box fixer plot show the results. Okay. And the question they are asking us is, which city has an upper quartile that is higher? Okay. What is upper quartile? Upper quartile. Upper quartile means 75%, right? That is the upper quarter. And similarly, the lower quartile would be the 25% of the total numbers, okay? So what we can see over here is, what was the total number of people? That were 280, right? 290, okay? So let's see, which city has a higher upper quartile? So we need to find the value for the upper quartile is, on a box and whiskers diagram, it would be always represented in this manner. I'll just draw it like this, okay? This, okay? Then we will have a line over here. We'll have a line over here. And we can have a line on this side, right? So there are certain values that are represented over here. We'll have one value over here. Okay, we have these values over here. So let's remove this upper quartile and let's just do it on the diagram. Okay, so these, can I remove this? Let's do them together on the same diagram because we would not need this anymore. So if this is the shape of a box and whiskers, each point is represented by a value. Okay, this value is the upper quartile. Okay, this is the maximum value. This is the minimum value. This point is the lower quartile. Okay, and this value in the middle was median. Okay, so we have to consider these values. So we have Stafford. Stafford's upper quartile was, Stafford had an upper quartile at 280. Similarly, when we look at Lakeside, Lakeside, you don't have to write this, I'm just writing it to explain. Upper quartile, sorry, RTILE, quartile. Where's the upper quartile? At, this is 240, this is 280, then this should be 260. This is 260. So their question is, which city has a higher upper quartile? So can we compare these two values? Just by comparing these two values, we can say that Stafford has a higher upper quartile. So this diagram that I made over here, this is very important for us. We need to remember these values. This would be the minimum value, then the lower quartile, median, upper quartile, and max. Okay. There is one more information that we need to process over here. That is maximum minus minimum. If we have range, that would be maximum value minus the minimum value. That means the range defines the set of values that from this value to this value, the values are possible. Okay. In this case, the range of bills that would be given to the people or the living in these two cities. Okay. So we just need to remember this. What is lower quartile, what is median, what is upper, what is maximum, and what is the minimum value. Okay. Moving ahead to the question. Next question, I think it would be much easier for us now because we know that what does quartile represent. Okay. Okay. Just a minute. In question number 2, it says, keeping this in mind, I'll just copy this for our reference. I'll try to copy this every time. Copy paste. Okay. This would be there for our reference. Okay. Let's put it up in a box so that we can always refer to this. I'll try to copy this in every question. Okay. So in question number 2, what they are saying is an air traffic controller took note of how many flights left certain cities each day. How many flights left certain cities? The box and whiskers plot show the result. So we know that this should be minimum, this should be lower quartile, this should be median. Agreed? And so on. Let's increase the size. Okay. This should be median, this should be upper quartile, and this should be max, right? So the minimum flights, if I would say, if rather than part A, if I would say find the minimum number of flights. So all we need to do is we need to look at minimum value. That was 40, right? Same way, if they would say find the median number of flights, that would mean where is median? Median would be 50, right? But they're asking us for a new value over here. An outlier means the term outlier that is used over here is, see, we see this outlier over here, the star. The outlier means that there were some cities which did not have a flight. The airport is working, but on that day, right, on a particular day or a particular week, there were no flights. It's an isolated airport, right? So an outlier means out of the ordinary, right? So what is the outlier over here? We just look at this value. That means 0 was the outlier. Outlier means outside the box and whiskers. Which value lies outside the box and whiskers? Okay. The the value of the outlier is 0 flights. Do we agree? So we just made some questions, some parts out of it, right? Okay. Let's see another one. Tim wants to buy a new car and curious to see. Okay. If the question given to us is, just a minute, I'll just copy it. For question number 3, it says this information that Tim wants to buy, sorry, just a minute. He wants to buy a new car. Question number 3 is wants to buy a new car and is curious to see what the price difference is at a dealership in different countries nearby. Okay. So he wants to compare the pricing. What percent of the new cars cost 2,800 or less? Okay. So we know that. Let's label the values first. Okay. We know that we need to refer to this, right? Lower quartile, median, and everything. So if we compare this with the given question, we can say that, can we label the minimum upper quartile? Can we say this was minimum, this was lower quartile, this was median, this was upper quartile, and this was the maximum price range, $36,000. Okay. Okay. What they're asking us is what percentage of the new cars cost 2,800, cost 2,800 or less. That means since 2,800 has lower quartile, right? So we can say that lower quartile is 25%, median was 50%, and upper quartile was 75%. That means 25% of the cars, 25% of the cars costed less than 2,000, 28,000. Okay, do we agree? Just depending on the position where that dot is, we have to look at 25% is lower quota. That means 25. This is the value, 25% of the cars from the minimum to the lower quartile. Okay, do we agree on this? We'll look at more examples. Okay, outlier was a point that was outside the box and whiskers, right? If they're asking us about the quartiles or the median, then we simply go to the box and whisker, and we try to find that value. Okay. Moving ahead with the next question that we have is, let me just copy that for you. Students were surveyed as how many stuffed animals they had at home. Okay, they're again asking about an outlier. Let's see what an outlier would be over here. In question number 4, in question number 4, we can say students were asked about stuffed toys. Okay, and this was given to us. Okay, can we say, let's suppose we add more questions to it. What is an outlier? An outlier is a point that is outside the box and whiskers. We know that over here, this was the minimum, this was the maximum, right? But one student said he had 100. Not every student have 100, right? So the maximum number of stuffed animal owned by a student would be 80. But one student said I had 100. So that student stands out, right? So in this case, the outlier would be 100 stuffed animals. Because this is a value that is outside the box and whiskers. Okay. So let's say find the median number of stuffed toys owned by the students. So we know that this was the minimum, that was the maximum, and apart from that, we know this is lower quartile, this was upper quartile, and this was median, right? So that means 40 toys. The median number, on average, median is also known as the middle value or on average. Okay, sorry, we look at average later. Okay, so median would be the middle value, that these many students would be owning 40 toys, right? Do we agree till here? On average, students will own 40 toys. Do we agree on this? Okay, thank you. And I would add one more part to it. Find the range of toys owned by students. So we know that the range is always the maximum and possibility minus the minimum. So we can say the range would come out to be, what is the maximum value? In this case, we do not consider the outlier because that is not part of the box and whiskers, right? The maximum would be 80 minus the minimum, what was 10. That means 70 toys is the range. Like there could not be a student who has less than 10 toys, right? So that is the range for us. Okay. If we do not consider the outlier. Okay. Okay. Let's see for the next question. What are they asking us? Okay. In the next question, they're again comparing two values together. Okay. I'll just copy them. I'll just copy the question. A store with brands in Clarksville and Belief asked customers about their household annual clothing budget. Okay, it's about the clothing budget. And we say this is question number 5. Okay, we say this is question number 5. Let's resize this. Box and whiskers are there. So there are two box and whiskers over here, Clarksville and Believe, right? Which city has a lower quartile that is lower? Which country or lower or smaller, right? So which city has a smaller lower quartile? So we simply mark them over here. We can say this was the minimum, this was the maximum, this was the lower quartile, this was the median, and this was the upper quartile, upper 75%. This was the minimum, this is the lower quartile, this is the median, this is upper quartile, and this was the max, right? So this city has a lower quartile. Can we say that this has a lower quartile compared to this value, right? So which city is? We can say Clarksville, sorry, Clarksville has a lower or smaller lower quartile. That means their 50%, their 25% have this value. Okay, their lower 25% are spending less money, right? Okay, can be okay. We add one more to it. Which city has a greater budget for spending as an individual, right? So what we need to see is, we see when we are talking about the budget, the minimum spend and the maximum spend we need to see, right? So if we say, if we were doing Clarksville, what is the range? And we know that the range is always maximum minus minimum, right? Maximum spend in this case was 2,300 minus the minimum, that was 1,200. That means their range is, or greater budget. Okay, greater budget, no, we say greater range. We would directly use the word range because the greater budget means the higher value on dollars, right? Greater range of spending. Okay, that would simply be 2,400 greater budget. We are looking at greater range. This means 1,100 is the range for Clarksville, and for Believe, okay, the range would be maximum minus minimum. That is 2,400 minus 1,500. That is 900. So which city has a greater range? Clarksville, right? Clarksville has a greater range. Okay, so if we were looking at higher spending, so we see which has a maximum which maximum value is greater. So we can say Believe has a higher spending, but higher range would be Clarksville. Okay, so depending on what they're asking us in the question, we would try to find the values. Okay. Okay. Moving on ahead to the next question. One minute. The next question says the entertainment section of the local magazine needs to know the number of movies showed daily in different theaters, right? So let's copy question number 6. This is our question number 6. And this is the box and whiskers given to us. It is the box and whiskers is giving at the number of movies shown daily in different theaters, right? Movies shown at theaters, right? What percent of the theaters show 24 or fewer movies? So that means we look at X over here. This was 24, right? So 24 is which value? If we label this first, this was minimum, this was lower quartile, this was medium, or median, and this was upper quartile, and this was max, right? Max means everything. So we can say that 100% of theaters showed 24 or fewer movies. That means we are considering all the theaters because 24 lies at the max value and the max is always 100%. Okay, very simple. We just need to find one basic answer from this. Okay, so the next one is very simple. The next question says a water company sends the bills for December. They need to verify the bills. I can directly read this also. Water bill for December in dollars, right? So they're talking about the bills. And they're saying what is the median? So can we say this is the minimum? This is the lower quartile. This is the median. This is the upper quartile. And this was the max, right? Max bill given. So what is the median bill given? Water bill is dollars 80. Do we agree? $80 is the median average bill given to the residents, right? Or to the customers. Okay, let's try something else in this. Okay, we can say there is one more thing that is known as interquartile range. Interquartile range defines the middle 50%. Where does the middle 50% of the values lie? And how to find interquartile range? That is upper quartile minus the lower quartile. Okay. So what was the upper quartile over here? This would be 90, right? Upper quartile was 90 minus the lower quartile was 70. That means $20. That means the middle 50% of the people had a bill difference of $20. See, because the lowest 25% lower quartile is 25%, right? For this 25%, we said this was 25% and upper quartile was 75%. So what we are saying is in IQR, we say the bill difference between the 1/4 and 3/4 of the people is this amount. Okay, that is known as interquartile range. So whenever they use the word interquartile, we will try to find upper quartile minus the lower quartile. Okay, agreed? Thank you. Let's try another and let's try to add more parts to it. Okay. They would be using a lot of words just to confuse, okay? Because this question says, which city shelter has an upper quartile which is lower? So how can something which is already upper can be lower? But that is possible in box and whiskers, right? Because upper quartile is basically a value. Okay, let's do this. Okay, question number 8. What question number 8 tells us is the board of directors for a non-profit organization are researching the number of food donations received by Hillsdale Shelter, shelter number 1, and Westford Shelter each month to see if they can help. These box and whiskers show the result. Can we label? This would be minimum, this would be lower quartile, this would be median, this is upper quartile, and this was maximum, right? Let's compare. This was minimum, lower quartile, median, upper quartile, and maximum, right? Which city shelter has an upper quartile which is smaller? They're using the words lower just to confuse. We can also say which is smaller. So can we compare the upper quartiles of both the values? The upper quartile for Hillsdale was 500. And what is the upper quartile for Westford? That was 900, right? Do we agree? That was 900. So which city shelter? Hillsdale Shelter has a lower or smaller upper quartile. That means there were less people donating over there because it had a lower value, okay? Because this is about non-profit organization and it's about the donations they were being received, right? So higher value would mean more donations are coming in. Lower value would mean lower donation. So they need to help out Hillsdale to increase their monthly food donations, okay? Let's try a question or two more. 8. Let's try. Then we would try the test. And for the test, I would want you to answer it. Okay. A manager at a note. He's noting down the money spent by the customers while they're shopping. Okay. So let's say question number 9. Okay. Let's say this is question number 9. A manager at a supermarket noted the amount spent by customers enrolled in the frequent shopper program. Okay. And they draw it on a box and whiskers. And they're saying that what percentage of people spend more than $140 on grocery each week? Spend more than. Is there a number more than? Is there any value that is when the maximum adds at 140? That means there are more than 140 would mean somewhere over here. Do we have any dots over here? No. There are no customers spending more than $140 per week, because 140 is the maximum, right? So we say is equals to 0%. 0% of the customers, right? So if we want to understand this, can we say what percent? Another part to this question: what percent of the people spend $120 or less per week? So when we are saying spend 120 or less means we try to find 120. This had a marking. This already was upper quartile. And we know that upper quartile is 75%, right? That means this value was the number of people who were spending 120 or less than 120. That means how many percent? What percent of people? 75% of the people were either spending 120 or less than $120, right? So we can simply find the values based on the question and the requirements that are there. Okay. We would need to strictly follow whether they're saying greater than, less than. That is very important for us over here. Okay. Keeping in mind the inequalities. Okay. Having a look at the next question, can we say, just a minute, please. Let me copy this. The principal of school taking over grade reports. Okay. They're making results in a box and whisker. School test results. That is question number 10. What is the median? What should be the median? Since we already know if a box and whiskers is given, we can do the labeling. We can say this would be the minimum. We can say this is the maximum. We can say lower quartile. We can say upper quartile. What about this value? That is the median. And they are simply asking us what is the median for this given question. What should be the median? So since this was 70 and this was 80, then this should be 75. 75 points, right? I would say the score is in points. So 50% of the students 50% of the students scored 75 points. Okay, that is the median score. Okay. Can we add a part or two in this? Let's suppose if I would say find the interquartile range for the scores. We remember that IQR, that is interquartile range, would be upper quartile minus lower quartile. What is the value of upper quartile in this case? That would be 85 minus what is the lower quartile in this case? Let's find lower quartile. Yes, this was lower quartile. That was 65 minus 65. That means 20 points, right? So we can say that the middle 50% of the score had a range of 20 points. From 25% of the score, see, if there were 10 students, or let's suppose there were 20 students. What is 25% of 20? That is 5. That means 5 students got the lower quota. That was 65%. What is 75%? That is 15, right? So 15% got around 85, right? 15 students, the maximum score was around 85 fixed. So what we want to see is from 25% to 75%, what is the gap of the score? That means interquartile range. That how do we find? IQR is Q3 upper quartile minus lower quartile. Okay. Let's try the test. Let's see what we can do in the test. So the first question we have for the test, we would just be studying. We're not making box and whiskers for now. Okay. We're not doing box and whiskers or anything. We're not doing the construction. We are just only doing this, studying the box and whiskers for now. Just a minute. Let me go back. This was 413. And interpret box and whiskers, the test. Sorry. Let's begin. And I want you people to start the test as well so that we do it together. There are only just 10 questions in the test. We'll try to do them together, the maximum number we can. Okay. The remaining would be homework for you. So the first question from the test states that, and just keep it over here. Let's increase the size. This is question number 1 from the test. An air traffic controller took note of how many flights left a certain city each day. The box and whisker plot shows the results. What is an outlier? Can anyone answer? What is the outlier in this question? As we did, as we remember, an outlier is a number that is outside the box and whisker, right? A value outside the box and whiskers, right? So can we see a value that is outside the box and whiskers? We can say this was minimum, right? This was lower quartile, this was median, this was upper quartile, and this was the, the max, right? So what is an outlier? Yes, thank you. The outlier in this question would be the value that is outside, something that stands out. That is not normal, right? That means in this case, 0. There was a city which had 0 flights. Yes, 0 flights would be the outlier. Thank you. Let's click on 0 flights. So the next question for us is the okay, the entertainment section of a movie magazine. Okay, let's try question number 2. In question number 2, they're asking us, is the information a box and whiskers is given. It's about movies. So the minimum number of movies shown were, we can say the minimum was, this was 18, this was 14, and this was 22. So the minimum number of movies shown in a day were 14. The lower quartile was 16. Median was 20. The upper quartile is 20. This is upper quartile, and this was the maximum, right? What percent of theaters show 24 or less? Can there be more than 24 movies? 24 is the maximum, right? Either they show 24 movies or any number less than 24, right? Okay, sorry. Let's change the answers over here. The answers could be, I'll just give you 2 other options, right? That's just a repetition. The answers can be 100%, or the answer could be 50%. What percentage of theaters showed 24 or lower movies? See, can there be 26 movies in this? Not possible, right? Because the minimum number of movies was 14 that were being shown, and the maximum number of movies were 24. So either they showed 24 movies, or they showed 23, 22, or any number that has to be less than 20 or 20, less than equals to 24, right? So how many cinemas should be there? Like theaters should be showing? Yes, true. That means if we are taking the maximum value, that means
100% of the theaters, 100% theaters we had were showing 24 movies. Okay, okay, 24 or less. Okay, so please do try the remaining questions and just try to find the answers. Okay, and if there is any problem, just go back to the lesson and have a look. Okay, take care, have a nice day, and best of luck. Bye.